All right, hi and welcome everyone. We're going to be talking about how to Truggify your ARRMA Typhon, and this is version 4. And what Truggifying is, it basically originated, from my understanding, with the great Rich Duper Bash. And your typical ARRMA Typhon will come with, these type of tires, which are a little bit skinnier, narrower, buggy type tires, and they work pretty good, but you don't have a lot of the ability to really bash like you would if you had a little bit of a wider, higher traction tire. I mean, it still handles really good, but what I notice is these tires, because they're very narrow, they kind of cut through the terrain and the grass and the dirt, instead of actually floating over and really allowing you to jam. Now, these are the typical Trugify tires that people will use with the ARRMA Typhons. This is a Badlands 2.8, and what that means is it's on a 2.8 inch rim, and the tire itself, might be like maybe 3.8, 4 inches high, and it's a good probably 3.5 inches wide. But when you put this guy on there, you definitely have way better traction, way better ability to bash, and just have massive fun off-road. Now, if you were going to ride on a track, then obviously you want to stick with probably the stock tires. But the other thing that Truggifying does is it basically widens the width of the Typhon. So your tires are going to stay out a bunch more. They're going to be wider. So instead of your tires being in like this, where you've got maybe it's about this wide, which I have noticed with the Typhon, it tends to want to flip over, if you hit a corner really hard. With the Truggification process, you may get the tires and everything out about that wide. So you're going to definitely have more stability, and there's a lot of videos on it. My biggest challenge, I just got this Typhon about a week ago, and I enjoyed it a lot, with the regular tires, but I wanted to see what it was like as a Truggy. And so I want to go through in this series of videos how you do it and what parts you need, because that was the biggest problem for me, was trying to figure out the parts. So, but hats off to the guys at the ARRMA forum for the help. Now, one of the things you're going to do is you're going to be using parts from a ARRMA Kraton. And the ARRMA Kraton actually works really well. That's how I believe Rich Duper Bash did it the first time he ever did it, and people have been following that approach. And so you need a few things. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what you need to actually Truggify your Typhon and how you're going to do it. And the first thing you need to do is take off your hubs and all the associated parts. And this is the basically the original Typhon hub that goes here. And this is, I guess, what we call the whole hub assembly. You've got two bearings, one inner bearing, one outer bearing. You've got all of the caps, and you've got sort of the ball nuts, and you've got your hexes, and you've got your, pins, you've got your wheel nuts. But this is the original Typhon hub. And what do we use to replace that to get the width? Well, the main thing is going to be the Kraton hub. And so let's compare these here. Here's your original Typhon hub, right? And then here's your Kraton hub. And I don't know if you can see, but there's this, let me sort of bend this out a little bit. There's this additional bit of, maybe it's a 1/2 inch there where this sort of bows out. And that gives you that additional distance and that additional width. So see the difference here? The Kraton one is going to be on your left. You can see the original Typhon. And these are basically exactly the same from what I can see in all other respects. But there's just more width. Now that also, though, requires you to get different axle ends, not the entire dog bones. A lot of people think, oh, I need to get the whole dog bone. Not necessarily from what I am seeing. What you need is the axle end, because you can see this space is definitely like wider from where this bearing begins to where the axle is going to pop out. You need these longer guys. Now here's the original ARRMA Typhon axle end, or we could call it the axle stub. You can see it's way shorter, so you also need that part. And let me show you here. I'll post all the parts down below, but this is the part number for the actual axle. It's called the CVD axle, 8 by 44.5 millimeters, and this is for the front. This is for the front. And it is this part number, AR310590. And so these are longer because the Kraton hub housing is longer. It's got to come all the way out through there. Now, the next thing that you also need is the hex. Now, this is the hex. This is a hex from a Kraton. Again, I'll post the part numbers down below. Let me compare this with the hex from the Typhon that I took off. Now, you can see the difference. Here's the Typhon on the bottom. Everything else is pretty much the same from the hex nut going forward. But behind it, there's just a little more spacing there. A little bit more of a spacer that's machined in. So that also needs to be purchased to do this truckification process. Now, what about the back, you might ask? Well, the back is exactly the same. We want to use the ARRMA rear hubs, which again have this area that pops out a bit more than the stock rear hubs. And let me show you what the stock rear hubs look like. Now, it's not totally a huge amount, but if we lay these guys side by side here, you can see there's a pretty good difference there. I don't know if y'all can see that. Basically another maybe ½ an inch. So that also adds up to a good set of additional spacing there. You can see right there that there's some more spacing there. If we took off this hex, you'd see it would be more like that. So you're looking at a good ½ inch there. Now, why is that needed? Because when we're running these 2.8 size rims on the Badlands MX-28s, and I didn't mention the actual tires, the Badlands MX-28. So you can see here it's 2.70 by 5.05. When we're running these guys and these smaller rims, we need that extra clearance so that the hub doesn't rub up on the inside of this tire. So because we're running smaller tires, smaller wheels, we need that additional spacing. I mean, even the ARRMA Typhon wheels, these are from a 3S, but the hub size is the same as the 6S. This actual wheel diameter is actually bigger than the MX-28 and the 2.8 size wheel. So we need to pop this out a little bit for more width, and we also need to make sure that we don't rub up against that hub inside our wheel. Now, some of you may be wondering, okay, what about if we just go with like some Badlands 3.8s on here? And I've got a set, and I did this this last weekend. I was like, well, wait a minute, what about these guys? Now, these I've used on the Kraton. They fit, they are pretty big. The problem is you don't need spacers to fit them, but they will balloon and they will run up against your body and you won't be able to turn. They're also a little bit big for the actual truck, so they don't actually work very well because they'll rub up against the body of the car. So what you'll want to do there is you want to basically avoid that route. It's not a long-term solution. What you do want to do is go for the truckification process if you feel called to do it. All in all, it's probably about $70 to buy the hubs, the hexes, the axle ends, and do it right, but you're not going to have any problems doing it that way. Some people will use wheel spacers, which isn't really the best way to go because it does put a lot of strain on some of the component parts. But what I'm going to be doing in these videos is taking you through the process of doing it, and I'm going to be doing it. I'm also going to be documenting taping up the tires, and these things balloon a lot, so I'm going to be doing that as well. And hopefully it'll be helpful for y'all. I'll post the actual part numbers down below so you can see what it is that you need to buy to do this. But basically, everything you need to buy, I'm thinking here, pretty much is located on this towel here. Okay, you pretty much got everything. Your hubs, your hubs, front hubs, rear hubs, your hexes that are longer, but you also need these guys, which is going to be what we call the axle ends, the axle stubs. And let me also make one note here. The front and rear are different. I was looking at the microfiche and I thought, oh, okay, they're the same. They're not. They're actually different. The fronts have a pin that goes in here that you want to use, and that pin I have saved over here, and it goes into the dog bone. Whereas I believe it's the rears, yeah, it's the rears that just actually, they go in and they fit in and they just lock into this little recess. So you do need those as well. So there's the part number, I believe, for the front, which is AR310590, and then this one is AR310591. And we'll go through the process and show y'all, and then we'll hopefully get some videos eventually of it running with the Trugify setup. So let me know your thoughts, and if you have any questions, I hope this helps you, and we'll see you in the next video.